Welcome to Flesh and Pod, a flesh and blood podcast, breaking down weekly news and notes from the tournament scene, community drama, game strategy, and more. And now, here are your hosts, Darick and Logan.
Hello, and welcome to episode, what the fuck is this, 179? Did not make it even close.
We literally
wasn't even
just said it.
close.
Just said it.
179 of Flesh and Pod. My name is Logan. I am your host. With me, as always, is Daddy Charmer. You think I missed that one from last week? Oh, no, children, I did not. And then also the Papa Jackal himself, Michael Brown, a Chargers Chamber of Charcoal participant, live and in the building. Good to see you, buddy. It's been a minute.
It's been a long time.
So I'm gonna background people really quick because I know I brought this up before, but now that you're on screen, I can do this properly. So to call Mr. Brown here an OG would do him a disservice. He is he's pretty much what made us keep this show going past like episode 10. He was the MVP of our Discord for a year plus, guiding conversations, calling out shitheads. He's the one that
shitheads that called out. I don't remember any
of this. You want Shuggy time, bro? And then also the one that bullied us into starting a Patreon, and then was our first patron just right out the gate. And here he is now, just back in the fold, where he belongs, buddy. As the only one to have met you in person.
That's true, actually. You and Holly, yeah.
Yep, when we were in Orlando one time, but it was it's good to see you. It's good to have you back. How you feeling?
I'm all right.
Sleep
okay.
deprived?
Yes and no. The baby sort of sleeps, and I mean, I just sleep when I can. But yeah, for the most part.
You see, that's smart. That's how you have to do it, or else you die.
That's true. Sleep deprivation will kill your ass.
Now, I know that both of you are going to be utter fucking disappointments, and I'm so ready for this. Did either of you do anything in Flesh and Blood this week?
Derek, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I actually did do something in Flesh and Blood.
Go on. Jackal gave you the clap, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I definitely did.
It's a good thing I'm going to see my doctor tomorrow. I'll just work that in.
Good man. Smart man.
I did what I always do, which was definitely not go to anything organized. But I did start playing with Stark again to prep him for what will hopefully be an upcoming armory event, because he started asking again. I was kind of waiting for him to circle back around. He'd been on the Star Wars kick, and then he was like, he calls it Flesh for short. He goes, I want to play Flesh. And I was like, dude, you gotta say Fab or something, because the last thing I need is you at school being like, yeah, I was playing Flesh with my dad. And I'm just like, no, please, God, no. So, but that's what he's 11, he's turning 12 at the end of the month. And so he's just like, Dad, I want to play Flesh. Let's play some Flesh. And I'm like, no. So yeah, he
wait till he tells you, bro, when do I get to Fab? When can I fab? I
would rather that than play Flesh with my dad.
Dad,
one of them doesn't get me arrested. Okay.
When does the blood get involved, Dad?
So, yeah, he has an Azalea deck. He bought the Armory deck. We've done some upgrades. Just trying to get him prepped to hopefully go on Wednesday. He is asked to go.
Awesome.
All right. Michael, you didn't do shit about fuck, right?
Well, I've been playing on Talishar. The only local place I have is 2.5 hours away, and they play on Thursdays and Sundays. And I still don't have anything in paper yet, just because baby. But it's also, in order to get product in person, I'd have to drive there. I really don't feel like doing that. So I'm just kind of waiting and trying to see where the meta really ends up shaking out, especially because of some very sudden news. And also Gravy Bones. He's the OG. I'm going to have to play him all day, every day. So
you just want that gravy. You want the young gravy and the old gravy.
Yeah. I mean, really, young gravy's just there. You have
it's
to
free.
play him.
It's free.
Yeah.
I guess I have to hold up my end of everything. I actually went to Battle Hard in Minneapolis this weekend.
Look at you go.
I played. I started out 2-0. Things were looking up. I then lost 3 straight. I played Aurora for one last time, knowing that she was going, and she gone.
Yeah, very appreciative.
So the games didn't go great, but I did. Shout out to MinMax sponsor, new sponsor of our show. MinMax Games, new sponsor of the show.
Oh yeah.
Not because they gave me money.
You didn't tell me this.
They're not our sponsor. Don't worry about it.
Oh, thank
God.
Listen, it's
Peter's not about to do that shit.
It's not that I don't absolutely adore Peter and the many other people that are involved with their operation. Drip Drop, Dando.
Oh, Dando.
All of that. It's not. I love them. I mean, I really do. But I feel like they could do better.
That's fair.
Well, you're being honest. That's what matters.
Well, it's funny because every time I see Peter, I always do the same thing. Hey, Peter, you want to sponsor a podcast? And this time, instead of just telling me no straight up, he's like, hey, Dando, do we want to sponsor a podcast? And Dando's just like, do we sponsor one? And Peter's like, no, I've never even listened to a podcast before. And Dando's like, oh, well, maybe. He's like, there you go. There's your answer. It's a maybe.
Oh, okay.
But the reason I'm calling them a sponsor for at least this episode is I was hanging out with they were playing Vibes. They were legit playing Vibes. And I was like, hey, is that a Japanese language case of Hunted back there? He's like, yep, sure is. I can't get rid of the thing. I was like, oh, how much? And so he gave me a number, and I kind of added the number. And then he said, are you paying cash? And I said, yeah. Then he gave me a much lower number. I'm like, I countered with a slightly lower number, and he said yes.
Does he still have... Was that his only one?
That was his only one.
Oh, fuck.
And so I then, because I was waiting for our esteemed listener and Chargers Chamber and Charcoal participant, Brandon Hartman, to get done. He actually did really well. He finished, I think, 17th, sadly, at the Battle Hardened, but was X2, was really, was playing really, really well, very locked in. But if you notice, like, I'm missing this Arachne poster that's normally here. And so I gave it to Brandon as he never had one. And he's a giant Arachne head. He has all the marvels. He's
a man of culture.
The oversized marvels. Like, he went all in. And so I'm like, here you go, buddy. And so I was waiting for him to get done with his last round. And so in doing so, I got bored. And if I'm bored and there are boxes of cards in front of me, I'm going to fucking open them. As God intended. And then what proceeded to happen is the case contained a Mask of Deceit. Okay, that's pretty good. A Quick Dodge Flexors, so we're doing great there. A EA Kabuto, so okay, doing good there. An EA Blood Splattered Vest, so we're doing really well here. 2 foil shelter from the storms and 1 regular shelter from the storms. So a playset of shelter from the storms.
I'm gonna scream.
And 4 L's, 2 of them being cold foil EA.
I don't even own a shelter. That's one of the reasons I was asking if he still had some, because I'm like, I didn't get to buy bulk hunted because I, like, full disclosure, I'm just like really still tight for cash from the between the Foster stuff and a bunch of Monroe's medical bills. Like, Sophie and I were doing the math. I finally got 2, I'll show the backsides, 2 of these reimbursement checks for his medical stuff because of things that were supposed to be covered for insurance. And so she was like, well, how
15?
We were up to 16. So that was just it. She said, like, well, how many of these are supposed to come? And I said, well, with those 2 now here, we have 14 still pending. And she was like, oh. I was like, yes. So I didn't buy bulk hunted, which is part of the reason that I had stuff coming in the mail for the 1 new deck that I even wanted to play this ProQuest season. So yeah, I would have snapped that up. That's why I was asking. I actually would still like to get some bulk hunted because...
Oh, I have plenty now.
Well, I might have to hit you
And I
up.
also have 3 extra copies of Shelter from the Storm.
There you go. They're right there.
Yeah.
I've owned 8 total. I sold one for the EA one for an exorbitant amount of money. I sent the other one to Azure. And then I opened these 3. So, But yeah, that's why MinMax is currently sponsoring this episode, because that was fucking insane. I showed it to Peter, and he's like, I guess I am sponsoring you. I'm like, yeah, pretty much. But let's talk about Battle Hard in Minneapolis. It's kind of the least interesting news of the week, wildly. And that's also considering that Kasai won the fucking thing.
Holy shit.
Okay, so a couple of things. The problem with Kasai, both good and bad, she's very good into the top end of decks. Outrageously good into the top of the meta. But as soon as somebody presents garbage that is unplayable in most cases into Kasai, she is dead.
Yeah, you talking like Brewer's Advantage stuff like she can't handle?
I'm talking about like Rhinar. Intimidate,
yep.
can't handle it.
Yep.
We're talking about shit like Verdance or Kano. Nope, that says Wizard. We're done. Yeah. We're talking about even things like Riptide. Like, that's not great. We can Saber for 2 for a while, but if it's aggro Riptide, we just get tore the fuck apart. We have like, there's just, you go down the list of like the decks that aren't real great. Like Ira can play the advantage game with us. So that's hard. Their shit just has go again. They don't have to work for it. So they get to like thing, giant thing. And we just get to go thing. Not as good. So yeah, this was like, the room was very heavy top meta. There's a lot of Aurora, a lot of Florian, and a lot of Prism, which people are like, God, Prism has to be really hard for Kasai. No, it fucking isn't. It's not. It's easy. It's okay. They attack with a Herald for 7. That's cool. That cost me 2 cards and my Valiant Dynamos, leaving me with attack and attack on my turn, which is all I ever do anyway. And I don't care if your second Herald hit. You're done for the turn. Like, fine. So, and then the fun part is like, but we have Herald of Erudition. You sure do. That's going to cost me 1 block of my gloves and a card from hand. We did it. Yay. It's an easy-ass matchup. But most people just assume because we don't the deck doesn't run poppers, really, that it's not as good, and that's just incorrect. So yeah, that's the kind of, that's why Kasai is good here, and I think that what Patrick McGregor, and Andrew Rotherwell did with the list makes a ton of sense to play like Sharpened Senses and the draw swords. Like it looked a lot like the first drafts of Kasai that I had when Heavy Hitters came out, in the fact that there were 8 copies of draw swords, and then playing Raisin Army because you need to resolve 1 Centauri Sellsword against Florian and they die. It is so hard for them to do anything with the 1/3/2 staring them down. So you get to do fun shit against that deck. Syndra's just a race, but you can block pretty efficiently. Marionette, like, again, you block really well, and they're going to try to push, and you have D-Reacts, you have time. You can do all the things, it's fine. And they were being psychopaths as well and running 3 copies of Snag in the list.
Ooh.
So, fuck off.
That's somebody who just really hates Assassin.
Yeah, it's really really cute. It's really cute when you throw a Valiant Dynamo in front of a Bonds of Agony, and then they go react. This is 1,000,000, and you're just like, snag it.
Oops.
Clean block, I guess. Like anything else?
See you tomorrow.
Yeah, see you tomorrow. Maybe, allegedly. The top 8 of the event was 1 Kasai, 1 Aurora. You could already see the turning of the tail here too, because it's not the standard 3 Auroras and 2 Illusionists. Instead, it's 1 Aurora, 1 Illusionist. But yeah, so you have a Kasai and Aurora, a Prism, 2 Florians, Arachne Marionette, a Fang, and a Syndra. The finals was Kasai Syndra.
I'm actually it hasn't come up yet. Largely probably, because this event just happened and I haven't ran into any of them in on Talishar in a while, but I'm glad we're having this conversation because it just occurred to me that in that Kasai matchup especially, or any matchup where you are expecting snags or whatever, grain becomes insanely important.
Yep, because it's not a react.
It's not a
you
react.
can pump
It's
it over
an
by
instant.
1. Yep. That's again for new specifically.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
Grain
and
that
that's what
tips
I've
the
been
scale
playing
does
the
the thing.
most lately. I just feel... I think all of the assassins are surprisingly good in a post-Aurora meta, and I know we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but I still think that new is probably, like, percentage points, but just marginally better positioned than the others, but I think all of them are actually pretty well positioned post-Aurora.
Yeah. If you need to know, like, I know you don't run into assassins a lot, Mike, but the grain that tips the scales is
+1?
It's an instant +1 Marvel, or chi, I should say. I only play Marvel, so I just think of it as Marvel. But yeah,
you know that design space that's always attack reactions. What if we said fuck that and just did other shit?
Which is actually, you just explained the entirety of chi.
Yeah, and
So
you know what?
You just explained Mistveil.
as
That's
someone
why
who,
Mistveil was good.
Like, if you look at it, or from my perspective, I'm just now getting back into all this. Mistveil showed up while I was gone and has basically left almost right after I got back. That is the fastest turnaround ever. It sucks. And then to, like, worry that, like, oh, well, you know, Gravy Bones is not going to be to that level. I mean, he's just goofy. But, like, whenever they take a generically decent class, I mean, the Runeblade problem, it's always Runeblades. And now it's also always Assassins, apparently. To think, like, if they change the formula for either of these classes even a little bit, is it going to be dead in the water for 5 months and then explode for the next 6 and then be gone in a year? Or is it just going to be, like, a regular... Because, like, Florian, like, what the fuck is Florian? Like...
Good.
I know, but that's my thing. It's like, okay, well, they have Runeblade. He's literally just Earth Viserai. That's all he is. He's just Earth Viserai. Which, you hear it, like, okay, well, Viserai was the first Runeblade. And Florian's also Earth, therefore it makes sense. But at the same time, he should be different. But he just plays like Viserai did. It's just like, I'm going to try to get some value, be very mid-rangey, and then late game, like, my ability's always online, so I'm just going to beat the brakes off of you, block everything you throw at me, and we're going to do this for 3 more turns until you lose.
Yeah. Like,
It's insane.
Yeah. And we'll talk a little bit about that later, too, because of some of the stuff that was talked about in the Dev Talk. Mm-hmm. But the interesting part here is that Aurora is officially gone. So not only is 66% of Mistveil gone, now 33% of Rosetta is gone. Or sorry, 25% of Rosetta. I keep forgetting that Ocilio exists.
Yeah, me too.
But so does everybody else. And so 25% of Rosetta is gone, and 66% of Mistveil is gone. And new is good. And is your cat fucking killing somebody?
Probably. My bad.
Nice.
They are full on zoomies right now, like beating the shit out of that cat tree.
Fair.
We rep cats over here. That's fine.
Good.
But so Aurora's gone, and that starts the whole chain reaction of what the fuck is good now.
Yeah.
And so right now it looks like Florian, if you go by just looking at the results, Florian is the next best deck. Like, it's next best in wins when it comes to ProQuest season. There was 2 in the top 8 of this event. I played into it in round 3, I think, in Minneapolis. It was somebody I knew. But they did the whole, okay, turn 1, I'm going to play Tree, activate Scepter, make 4 rune chants, keep Tree. Next turn, we're going to activate Scepter, make 8 rune chants, go up to 12. And it's like, right. So the first ninth blade they set at me was 26 rune chants and a 9th blade. And it's like, yep,
Hate it.
that's what the cards do.
Hate it.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good. So Florian seems like it's probably going to be in position to be the best deck going forward. Although, like I said, things like Kasai can beat it. They play enough blues. They play enough little tricksy shit. They can block if they decide they get into an aggressive matchup. Those are all things, right? And Kasai also has the ability to just like play a weird package of generics and things like that are designed to fuck with whatever they're doing. And so that's part of it. Also, Arachnes are good still. Syndra can races Florian. Just puts foot on gas and goes.
Yeah.
And then you can't ignore Slip Through the Cracks, because that is also in the running for best aggro deck now with Syndra.
Yes.
And then lurking in the background as if a Fang deck just runs hot. It's the best deck in Flesh and Blood if it runs hot.
Mm-hmm. Which is not a good place to be, truthfully.
Well, no, not in this game. But some days you wake up and you feel lucky. So you just roll the bones.
Yeah. Yeah, don't worry. I know all too much about rolling a fucking die to see if you get to do anything for the turn. Trust me. I know.
Oh, yeah, you play Brute. You get it.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that later. I get it. So, Darick, who's the next best deck? Who gains the most here?
Well, so I think that those are two...
I literally have them listed as two different questions.
Yeah, two different questions. So, I do think Florian is probably the next best deck. And I think that just because I have been saying, for the last 3 or 4 podcasts, really, that I think Florian was underrepresented before. When you factor in the powerful things that deck can do, the flexibility, like the biggest issue with Florian is that it reminds me of like when Viserai was hot in the meta. Because even if you sit across the Florian right now, you don't know if it's going to be like the mid-rangey one, try to stock on Rune Chance, play defensive, and then go OTK one, etc. So you're going to have to adapt your game plan without really knowing, unless, it's like late in the day and maybe they've sat, to the right or the left of you and you kind of know, sort of thing. But for the most part, you kind of are playing the game before you even start to play the game, if that makes sense. So the deck is strong. It does powerful things. I think it's going to have a high representation going forward because a bunch of people were just playing Runeblade and that Runeblade's gone. So it would make sense for them to go play the other Runeblade. But it's just a good deck. And I've been saying it for a bit. So I do think that Florian's probably numbers wise right now the best deck in the format. That being said, as you said, I think that there are a lot of decks that can beat it. I don't think that it is like far and away the best deck. And I think that the deck that gained the most actually is Slip Through the Cracks. And the reason that I believe that is because I think Syndra is probably, just by pure raw numbers, the best aggressive deck when it's just going like full aggro. Dash.io might be just behind it. I think Slip Through the Cracks is probably your third best in terms of like raw numbers aggression, but I think it's better than the other two at playing a mid-range game plan if it needs to, right? So I think it's the most flexible of your aggressive style decks right now. And the reason I think Slip Through the Cracks gains a lot is because even though I think all of the assassins are relatively in a good spot right now, New, as weird as this sounds, New can have a bad matchup into Florian. Yes, you have disruption, but because so much of her like innate power comes from naturally banishing things your opponent is doing, you're just turning on the Florian hero power faster. It's the same problem I have with Huntsman right now. Huntsman, he can play a fatigue game. It is canonically a they. They can play a fatigue game, but right now with so much Florian and whatever, you're just helping them out, right? So with New potentially having a bad matchup into Florian, and New was doing best as like the anti-aggro pick when you were playing against aggro decks that ran blues. So like when Zen was good, that's when New was good. And I kept saying when Zen falls off, New will fall off. Syndra, if she picks up, New doesn't really have a good anti-aggro matchup into Syndra. There are things you can do to shore up that matchup. Running the frailty traps and some of those things might help a little bit, but the reality is there's just not many blues for you to target with your hero power. You're not going to get your hits with Siren's Call. All of those things that traditionally makes New good isn't going to be as good into Cinder as it was into some of your other aggro decks, right? So New isn't as good as an anti-aggro pick right now. And if New is not popular, then suddenly Slip Through the Cracks is even better because you didn't want to play against New on Slip Through the Cracks. So you can potentially dodge that. You can do really powerful stuff with Slip Through the Cracks. We've kind of already seen it pop up in a couple of top apes already, and I think that there's even like more room there. So I do think that deck probably gains the most. If Slippy gets a bunch of representation, then like next man up in the like rock paper scissors I think is Uzuri. Uzuri is a nightmare for Slippy, probably Slippy's worst matchup because it does everything that like you just don't want her to have free go again on that stealth stuff. The other reason I think that Uzuri could kind of come back in vogue, if you will, when you again talk about things that can play a really good mid-range thing, I think Uzuri right now is your second best like pure mid-range deck behind Florian. My reasoning for that is that there's a lot of really powerful on hits that she can still run, very comfortable with 2-card hands as far as like doing that offensively and then using 2 or 3 cards to block if necessary. There's a lot of really powerful defense reactions running around. There's a lot of classes you want defense reactions for running around. I think that a lot of people are underestimating how powerful the like Black Widow equipment pieces are for assassins. And so even if usually the trend is you want to run like AB1 into your rune blades or whatever, right? And that very well still could be the case because you usually have a decent number of blues if you're on New or even if you're on Uzuri. But if you really want to get cheeky and you don't really care about a couple of slots, you could actually run like 2 or 3 of those and then just also have the Spell Void for like emergency, which can, again, make a pretty big difference for some of those Runeblade matchups. So Uzuri, I think, is in a good spot as well. It doesn't destroy all the rune chants, but even if you're just trying to gain a marginal advantage, you could slip in stuff into your inventory like Cut Through the Facade, right? It's a nice Swapperino.
This one.
Yeah.
There's a reason they're sitting close.
Yeah. I think that other decks that gained a lot, I think Verdance potentially gains decent ground and Kano because, again, people are kind of forgetting about
Forgot
them.
Forgot about Dre.
Mm-hmm. And specifically if Florian picks up. So Florian, I think, does a lot of things really well. But because either the mid-range one wants, typical Runeblade hands where you want a certain number of cards, or even the like defensive-oriented build up a stockpile or rune chance, try to win in a turn or two versions, they want those cards. And if you can get your chip damage in, especially on Kano, from the arcane standpoint, and then wait for them to do their thing and pop off on top of them, there's a path to win there. So I think that both of the wizards, sorry SLEO, you don't count, gained a lot of ground right now as well.
Yeah, two things I want to make sure I comment on there. There's definitely a turning on Verdance joke, and I'm not going to make it right now, but it involves the dew point, and so we're just going to go ahead and leave that where it is. The other thing is, as soon as you said In Vogue, my brain went to the R&B group from the 90s with their hit Never Gonna Get It. I believe it's called, I think it's My Love parentheses Never Gonna Get It. Now I'm looking it up.
Yep, we are sharp as a tack.
Yeah, My Lovin' in parentheses You're Never Gonna Get It. Song by In Vogue. Okay. I'm just making sure I'm on my game.
You are on tonight, dude. You are doing
all right. Your turn, Mr. Brown. Do you have any comments on any of this horseshit?
So, like, the thing with Florian is he just seems to punish like greedy equipment setups that are like only AB1. And I'm even talking about like the Reaping Blade setups where it's not as like you're obviously not depending on Scepter, so you're not playing like that kind of like OTK kind of deal. You're grinding them out to late game where you're like, I'm cool with blocking with 2 to 3 cards out of my hand and then just sending sword, and eventually I'll get to the point where I've got enough stuff that I've put away that if I start making rune chants, you're going to hate it, and it's also late game. So either keep cycling these blues you pitched way earlier or block with them and still lose. And AB2 is like where most people probably want to be, but like AB3 is the only thing that sometimes, like, especially if it's like, God, I'm blanking. I shouldn't have this beer, I guess. It's Spell Void. Like some people, like you brought up Spell Void, and there's a lot of classes or heroes in general that really depend on it, and you kind of just can't. Because he's so good at being consistent that it's like, well, you may think this is like the pop-off turn, but he's going to have that turn again like 1 or 2 turns from now because he just does that because it's Florian. I also think Kano is that class that people will be like, oh, yeah, like you're saying, I can just play Kano and nobody's going to expect it, and I get to do the fun wizard thing and kill them on their turn. And oops, I miscounted, and I only have 1 card left in my hand, and I'm going to pitch it to Kano, and then I don't have any resources, so I guess I'll just lose now. So like it's still a lot of, you're only going to see good Kanos doing Kano things, which I think is fine. Brute's still dead in the water, like so dead in the water.
Accurate.
It's so frustrating.
Unless your name is Eugene and you're from Hong Kong,
I guess, but like, yeah, I have thoughts, and I'll save them for when I get to complain later. But
you do have a segment, so.
I do. I just think that when you look at Aurora getting blasted out of Classic Constructed, and then you try to look at a meta afterward, you brought up a good point too about 2-card hands. Right now, any heroes that can consistently play off 2-card hands are just juiced. They're so, because you have the ability to recover from a misplay or having a hand that just is nothing, and then you block with 2 cards, and then suddenly the actual value of the hand went up so much because you just soaked damage. And you're like, well, I'm not sending the best turn back, but like, I forgot that blocking is good in Flesh and Blood. You know?
Right. And I think that's kind of what makes New so dangerous right now, is because New can do this shit off 1-card hands,
which is brutal.
Because they have 5 defense reacts that are on the, or attack reacts that are on the board with their equipment. So. Yep.
Well, depends on which equipment you're running, but yeah.
Oh, look at this guy. Look at this fucking smarter than all of us.
And the thing about, like...
No, I think that, like, that's not me being smug.
I'm
I think
fucking with you.
I think that it's important to note that right now in a post-hunted world, there's, you know, different versions of New that I've seen running around where, you know, some are on Flick Knives, some are still on a Rousing Wave. And I can see the arguments for both, right? Flick Knives is a consistent 1 extra attack reaction, probably, you know, 3 or 4 times a game, depending on your deck build, versus a Rousing Wave is a guaranteed like 2 when you need it. And sometimes having 2 off the 1 card is that much more important for your bonds. I'm still a Redback Shroud Truther, but I know a lot of people still prefer Tunic for some reason. I just like having the extra attack react, and the 1 extra resource hasn't mattered a ton outside of like when I'm playing my attack reacts. Most people are still on stilettos, which makes sense. And then the head thing is, I think, matchup dependent. I do think that Traverse still has a place in the aggressive New stuff. Yeah, it's complicated, but
yeah, you kind of get to live in a world with New where you don't necessarily have to board out your chi as much as you were, because that's what you did against Aurora, is you just boarded it out, which makes Traverse pointless.
Right.
And then your hat's just Blade Break 2 no matter what. So you might as well see if you ever get any mileage out of it as Mask versus... I mean, you'll never get any mileage out of it as Mask either, so sure.
I think, well, that's ultimately what I'm saying is I think that right now in this post-Aurora meta, I think that it's not crazy to think about lists that actually just have both, and then you swap them depending on matchup right now. Because I think there's a place for, you know, Recurring Nightmares and Traverse depending on your matchup. Like I think Traverse is going to be probably better against like a Syndra, to be honest. I think probably. That having a bigger...
At the worst, it's going to do the same thing.
Yeah, worst is going to be the same thing. But I just think having a bigger pop-off turn versus... you know, trying to do the grindy thing. I think that the only time that you want to like always prioritize Mask is if you're on like one of the CYB news.
Yeah.
And I don't like to play that version personally.
Because you're mana culture.
No,
That's
I
all.
mean, look, I fully understand the appeal and the power of that version, but I like to attack and do the thing.
You like to banish cards from hands and tops of decks.
Yes.
You like to draw cards. You like to make your
which is
opponent discard
why
cards.
my current version of New is running Art of Body and Art of Mind, because I like to draw
blues and
cards.
reds.
Yeah. I like drawing cards.
Good enough. Anything else to talk about outside of the fact that this came up in the dev talk, but I just want to make sure that we put it out here. Aurora is gone, but it's already been announced that Aurora will be back in 1 year. So we already know that next year, this time, we get Aurora 2 Electric Boogaloo, and now it actually makes sense to call it Aurora 2 Electric Boogaloo because the thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I hate the fact that that's true. But anything else before we switch gears here a little bit?
No.
Well, we're not going to switch gears entirely because we're going to cover the dev talk. Aurora hit Living Legend. Aurora has been legal since mid-September of last year. For those of you counting at home, that's not even 8 months of legality. And she has already ascended to Living Legend. One of the things they bring up in the dev talk is that's way too fast, which, great. But another thing they brought up was she really didn't have any giant wins. No Pro Tours, no Worlds. Just wasn't just consistent wins when it came to seasons full of things, but no big spikes really. I mean, a couple of callings, but largely it was on the back of winning massive numbers of Pro Quests or RTNs or whatever that give those points, and that was her power. It's not like Enigma, where Enigma had a bunch of flashy wins. Worlds, a Pro Tour, several callings. Enigma was just good, right? And they kind of talked about the Aurora speedrun and how that isn't what they wanted to do, and they actually touched on quite a few different things. The first one is kind of just got my attention immediately because once James said it, Brian kind of winced a little bit because it seemed like he didn't want the cat to get out of the bag. But there was a card that was misprinted in the Aurora Armory deck. It turns out on the card Skyward Serenade, with the word "go again," there's supposed to be a bullet in front of it. And what that would do, what that one little dot would do, is make it an option you had to choose as one of the two modes for the card. So if you chose Embodiment Search a Skyzix from your deck, your turn's over because you don't have an action point. So you had to choose a thing and go again if you wanted to do anything else that turn. So that's very different. Because it isn't just a yellow 0 for 4 in the deck for free or more, depending. Instead, it is a card that might not actually get played. You might actually be better off playing Sizzle and Fry at that point in time. So that's kind of a big fucking deal. That was missed. You know, they talk about it. They said it was proofed the way that we sent it out. It was verified by numerous people the way we sent it out. When we got it back from the printer, it was wrong. Kind of hard to do anything about it. And so there's been a lot of chatter, you know, well, you fixed Briar and you sent out, you know, cards with armory kits to get people. Folks, it takes time to do that shit sometimes. And you could like banned it until then. Well, when people buy the Aurora Armory deck, they kind of want to play the fucking deck.
Yeah.
And
I never understood that mentality that people have. I mean, they come from other games where like bannings are a little bit more flexible, but like when you have a card pool system that's actually restricting what you can play, and then you have a product designed for new players to pick it up and put cards on the table, you can't do that because then all of a sudden, well, unless they also play a different lightning-friendly Runeblade, find it for me, please, that they can play in Classic Constructed. Oops.
It's in Living Legend. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, okay, either they just leave it over there until hopefully the problem gets fixed, or they just, I don't know, not have fun with the game. Doesn't make any sense.
I was just about to say, I think that this is just one of those cases where it's like the weird perfect storm, pun kind of intended, because
shocking.
This was, hey,
Banned.
look, shocking. You're in on that too. I love you. This was like the hero that was kind of intended to be the future face of the new player experience, right? So we had First Strike and we had the Armory deck and we had all of these things. And Logan and I very both vehemently hate errata because we believe that, cards should do what it says on the card. But part of the reason that we believe that is because when you talk about new player experience, nothing is more important than the cards doing what they say on the card, because they're just learning the game. So the last thing you want to be is like, oh no, that's that one card that technically does something different, and it's like in your premier Armory deck that you're like pushing out to folks, right? So the errata thing, it could be something down the road when 2026 hits. Maybe they do the errata then when she comes back and it becomes relevant. But I understand why they didn't snap do it here, because if all of that stuff has already hit the printer, unless you were going to do an emergency print and include the erratas with the Armory decks, right, or whatever, you're just not in a good spot one way or the other. And I think that just saying, okay, we'd rather have the new players have cards that do what they say they do is probably the right call. It's not an easy call. It's one of those things where it sucks no matter what you do, but I think that was probably correct. It's the way that I would have erred if I were in that situation.
Yeah. They also talked about that they wanted to, and were actively like in the discussion to just ban Flicker Wisp ahead of ProQuest season. And because, we talked about that one too, where it was, what can you ban? And my thought was you could ban Flicker Wisp. I'm not sure that's enough. And that's kind of, they were in that same boat. But they do regret not pulling the trigger on it. The theory that they were working with was a simple, we've banned a lot of shit recently. And, maybe we just let this one fly. And then it turns out, well, we let it fly for sure. And she gone. But, so there's some regret there with not banning Flicker Wisp. But like I said, I don't think they should beat themselves up too much on that one.
I think honestly, it's also a question of integrity, right? Like you bring up a good point that they've been banning a lot of stuff. And eventually, if you just keep banning things, people are going to stop playing your fucking game. When you make a mistake, or when a mistake happens, not even that anybody did anything intentionally, or it's just like, oh, they made a bad card design. They get the stuff back, it's printed wrong. What are they going to do? Take Sharpies and put a bullet point on there and send them out? So they just have this product, like we just have to put it out there. It is what it is, how it is. And they know how it's going to go. I mean, LSS is not stupid. They're like, okay, well, this is going to be horrible. Aurora's just going to slam this constantly. Is going to bully mid-tables everywhere with it. And like you said, is going to accumulate a bunch of very tiny victories that add up over time. She will go eventually, and it will be kind of quick, and it will be kind of miserable, but then it's just over. And instead of assuming that the player base is unable to handle that for a little bit, they're just like, well, listen, we're going to be straight up about this, I guess, now that it has happened. We knew, and we just had to try to weather it. It's like, okay, that means that they're willing to not waste their resources trying to band-aid a problem that doesn't need to get band-aided.
Yeah, LSS is two things. They are super fucking transparent, and it's part of their mission. It's part of what they think through, and they talk about it a lot, and they live it. Like, they live their talk when it comes to transparency. Right. The other thing they are is willing to take their medicine. Like, they know when something is fucked, and they will take their medicine. And this is one of those cases where there's like, yep, just got to take our medicine on this one. Because it's out there, there's not a lot of good options here, and so the least bad option is just let it run its course. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you had people complain because they hopped into the game on the Aurora Armory deck, and that's why they were so quick to say, she'll be back in a year. Like, we have it coming back. Like, it's coming back.
Right.
So I think that that's helpful. They did also spend a good amount of time talking about the LL system. They really did want to, like, they focused on the fact that no other game does this. This is definitely an experiment because they've taken cues from any number of games, and we see it, right? We see it all the time. The OP system is basically Magic's from 2015. We look at tournament structures are largely the same as everybody else has done. They're not super different or anything else. So yeah, this is kind of one of those things that feels the most off the wall to people coming from a different game. I was, in this game early enough that there was no such thing as a living legend hero yet. So when I started, there was no LL heroes. It was like, oh, it'll be cool when that happens eventually.
And then Starvo, Starvo wasn't the first, was he?
Nope, Chain was the first.
That's right, my edgy emo boy.
Starvo LL'd. Starvo technically hit the LL threshold right after.
Right.
But yeah, so Chain was the first. Yeah, no one's touching that number. Like 1560 something or whatever it is.
Unreal.
Like he tried to lap the board.
Yeah.
But that was also in a different time where the LL system had specific checkpoints. And then Starvo made them realize we need not specific checkpoints. We need to check this have this check happen every week, so we don't have Starvo just sitting here getting through or Briar or whoever getting through a season at 998 and lurking for another season. That feels horrible for everybody. So they changed that, right? It's been a living system. No pun intended, Charmer. Fuck off. But it's been a system where it's meant to change over time. They're still fleshing it out. God damn it. That's another pun.
You're on a roll, baby.
I'm on the wrong kind of roll. But the issue here is, they're doing something different. And so a lot of people have complaints like, well, we need rotation instead. Fuck off with your rotations. I don't want rotation. Like, rotation is boring and old.
Well, and you can see that rotation's like not an awesome system.
No.
There's other card games where rotation isn't like just respected at all. I mean, stuff gets printed that, will leapfrog that rotation schedule to affect older formats or longer lasting, larger card pool formats. And then that creates problems where when something rotates out of a smaller lifespan format into a larger lifespan format, is it actually as impactful as it should have been by this decades-old design ethos? And it's not because they said, oh, well, here's 2 other supplemental products that happened in the time frame that it should have been rotated out in. And they're just full of stuff that eclipses everything that just rotated into this older format and out of the other one.
Well, yeah, it kind of like has this weird thing where it bloats, right? It becomes unwieldy, and then it suddenly contracts to a kind of a just smaller and less engaging thing. And you only have the time in the middle that's an actively good game.
Right.
And that's what I don't like about rotations. What I do like about the Living Legend system is there's some predictability. And there's also agency, right? I mean, the players basically decide when a hero when a hero's going to go, right? They by winning with it. So in this case, Pablo Pintor took Enigma to Worlds because he wants to play Guardian. So to the Pro Tour, Pro Tour London. He takes Enigma to Pro Tour London because he wants to play Guardian, knowing that if he can win with Enigma at Pro Tour London, it'll LL, and then Guardian can become playable, because that's the biggest fucking hurdle.
Oh, yeah.
So
I love all those blues.
That's right. Players do have agency here. And I feel like that's a good thing. The problems are outliers. Like Starvo, Aurora, even Zen are outliers. Because they flat out say that in the DevTalk that the ideal time for a hero to be legal that's in like an A to S tier hero is 12 to 15 months. Zen was legal for about that.
Yep.
And Aurora was a bit too fast. But and Zen and Enigma hit that pretty close to the button. So those weren't that bad when it comes to now printing 2 legit S tier heroes in the same set, and then also having one that if you would have left everything alone would have made Aurora speedrun look like a fucking turtle at the Indy 500. That's different. That's a different conversation. But what we're seeing here is that it's a system. They don't want to give up on it, which is great. But they're also, because it's LSS, they're receptive to change. They have been having discussions about how they want to change the system. And they're not opposed to, if it just can't work, they're not opposed to scrapping it. Again, my personal opinion, I love the system. I really do. It does have flaws? Sure. But they're experimenting. They're doing something different, for fuck's sake. Which, thank God. But to me, I don't think they should give up on that system.
No,
personally.
not even close.
Darick, you look pensive.
No, I don't.
Okay, so your balls are just stuck to your chair. Got it. There's also, they had the discussion about the talented hero problem. Where...
oh boy. And
we all know this one. We have definitely had this discussion. I'll crack that beer, baby.
Hell yeah, baby. It's my last one.
And we've had this discussion 1,000 times. I mean,
I think everybody has.
Yeah, talented heroes wind up cracked. It is what it is. But they talk about how it's difficult for them because of identities, right? So every region of Wraith has a talent associated with it. So if you're going to go and put a set in that region, you're probably going to find talents in that set, or things feel a little homogenous and underpowered and, let's face it, sort of boring. While Heavy Hitters Limited was a lot of fun, coming out of Heavy Hitters, I mean, KO had its moment in the sun, but Betsy, Olympia, they haven't done much. Kasai is just coming on a little bit again after having had a decent run earlier, and Victor's always kind of lingered on the outskirts. Well, but all of them are fairly boring.
That's kind of in line with what I was going to bring up later, I guess. But, if you look at Heavy Hitters, not from KO's perspective, which obviously is a little unfair considering, it's like KO's thing. A lot of Brute stuff just has the bold text of Intimidate on it. And, it just doesn't always do something for Brutes. And we're talking about generic stuff that is accessible by every Brute, including Levia, who Intimidate's cool, but unless it's 3 years ago and you're playing Romping Club Levia and not playing Blood Debt, you don't really care about Intimidate, especially if things require Intimidate or have that additional cost. Discard a card. You can only have so much of that, and you can only count on 3 Blood Rushes to give you any amount of cards more than you started with. So it just becomes this thing of how do you balance? You have a class with Brute, which is very low on the talent scale. There's one.
Right, there's one.
A single one. How do you make that class still feel not necessarily top of the meta competitive, but still viable when you have classes like Runeblade, which are talented to hell and back. And then you have other classes that feel extremely pushed, you have Assassin, which has had so much stuff released for it within recent history. And they only have, one talent, right? I think it's just new.
Yeah, it's just new. She's the only talented one.
Which is, fine, but then, then you go, okay, I want to look at their generic card pool.
No. Slippy has Chaos.
Right. Oh, that's true.
Right.
Yep.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay. So, I mean, it's still you look at their generic pool for Assassins, just the base Assassin stuff. You're okay, a lot of this is still pretty good. Can't really argue with that. And so, you get a set Heavy Hitters, it's was this supposed to be a meme? What was the deal with this?
Well, I mean, no. I think Heavy Hitters you have to look at Heavy Hitters through a different lens because it was designed to be another way for an onboarding set.
Right.
A set that taught people how to attack and block. Sure. And that's why that's why the limited is good, is because the limited is like WTR, it's attacking and blocking.
Oh, glory days.
And right. And it's not a bunch of bullshit and it's a lot more accessible for people to just kind of pick up and do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it also makes for some heroes that feel lackluster.
Yep.
You know?
I mean, there is some of that, but I will say I do feel like Heavy potentially laid the foundation for what I imagine the future state of Brute to be.
Sure.
And that's with the beat chest. It was only on,
Yes.
I don't know, it was only on like 3 or 4 cards, I want to say, in
so
Heavy Hitters. I mean, it was the full
earlier.
rainbow, but I do imagine a future state where instead of relying on Intimidate, like you were talking about, instead, Runeblade has a lot going for it, but the play style has always kind of been like, you want your non-attack and then your attack and then like you turn on your Runeblade stuff.
Right.
I could imagine a world where for brutes, it's like you have your beat chest card and then a small number of cards printed that do something when they are discarded. And so the idea is you beat chest and then you discard that, and that is like your attack and non-attack. It's just your non-attack is being turned on because you've now discarded or whatever. But I think that was them kind of like laying the foundation for whenever we, revisit Brute, which I do think is coming sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll table this till later because we're really focusing on talents right now. But like, beat chest is interesting, and I'll bring it up later because there's a very important word in the rules for beat chest that I love is there, and I will bring it up when the time comes. But I think as far as talents go, like, identity is extremely important because obviously if there's a different word in the type line, you want a different experience. You want your Briars, your Auroras, your Florians to feel different than Viscerai. You want them to feel different so that players feel like, I'm not just playing Earth Viscerai. But it's hard to do that without either A, making them way too cute and way too locked into a certain mechanic, or B, insanely busted because the mechanic you gave them is just accidentally too good. It's very hard.
I also forgot that the card Pound Town existed, and now I remember. My brain is just going
baby.
straight back to horny hitters.
Oh yeah,
And
baby.
My God, that fucking set. Jesus. Also, shout out again to Fabry. I know you do these on occasion, but God, the interface is
Love
so
it.
clean.
It's so good, and it's like
clean.
snappy. It's immediate. Like,
Ugh, I love it. At any rate, the next thing that kind of touched on were armory decks because that became the problem with Aurora. So now it's going to be fairly closer to like the Gravy Bones thing that we're seeing, where armory decks kind of will come out with the hero coming out in a set. So you kind of see the full pool immediately. So it makes it easier for them to identify issues. But they'll be more focused on support where it's needed to go. So you think Max Nitro, I mean, yeah, definitely needed it. Still didn't do enough. Still shit. Aurora didn't need it. But the reason it existed is they're trying something new. Shocking. Because it was Gen Con where... Go fuck... Both of y'all go fuck yourselves. But it was Gen Con where, they introduced the First Strike decks. And then you wait a few beats, and then you end up introducing, her as a Blitz hero, with a fuller card pool in Rosetta. And then you wait a couple more beats, and you release the Armory deck. And it was supposed to be the pathway, right? You're supposed to start at Gen Con with this First Strike deck, learn Blitz, and then pick up the Armory deck, and then you followed the hero's journey, and now you are playing Flesh and Blood as James White intended. But, as we've already talked about, it kind of got out of the way. It kind of got out of hand. And so doing that turned into we experimented. It didn't quite work out. That's about it. And I agree. All things considered, I think that's smart. Like, you tried it didn't work, move on. They've done that a lot with different things, but we'll never get PvE.
I think that's a really interesting point, almost against the Living Legend system, though, right? Like, you have the pathway, which is, at its face value, a very smart design. You go, here's this extremely like baby's first product. Pick it up, put cards on the table, learn to play the game. Then you're like, okay, we have this smaller short form format that will teach you a little bit more of the strategy, a little bit more of the depth. And then it's like, well, now we have a product that you can buy that uses the same thing you learned on to play the big boy game. And then people play it, and then now it's suddenly everywhere, right? So it's kind of those small, like 1,000 small cuts took her down.
Right, which is why that they went ahead and said that armory decks going forward, that's not what they're going to do.
Right, which is perfectly fine.
Again, very smart from a consumer perspective, very smart. But with the way the system works, now you have a bunch of people who are picking up the game for the first time because the game went through a mass expansion specifically in Europe and Asia over the course of that time frame. Because again, shout out to Alex Watkins, we'll have him back on here soon, and their team at the convention side with the Learn to Play booze. They brought in a swarm of new people to the game.
Right.
And on top of that, you have again, the explosion in Europe, the explosions in Asia, the explosions in South America of the game.
I was going to say, can we say like with players or something? Because right now with the current political climate, and you're just saying things like, yeah, we have explosions here, we have explosions there. It's like,
Germany, Asia, the Lady Gaga concert. It's just crazy right now.
Wait, what? Okay, never mind. We're just going to leave that one alone. But sure, the explosion in player base. Is that better?
It is.
Okay. Or mass expansion. Can I say that one? Is that good?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know if you were going to make some erection joke or something and make it dirty, but...
No, I'm a professional.
Oh, God forbid. God forbid.
You're the one that made the fucking Terry Schiavo joke.
I don't know what you're talking about.
It's in 4K!
Oh.
God damn it!
Wow.
All right. Moving on. Let's talk about bans. Because they did, again, address bans within the DevTalk as well. They realized that, as a tool, bans are useful. I do agree. And I don't like bans, just in general, because I like to play the cards I own. But I also understand when a card is unhealthy. And if you're ever going to errata a card, no, just fucking ban it. I would much rather it be banned than errata. Errata is just the worst. Mm-hmm. So, that being said, they are going to add more calendar windows, so there aren't as many emergency ban situations, so that they can address the meta and make sure they're keeping it healthy as they go. They plan to be aggressive but thoughtful, and they did say that they're moving up the next ban announcement to May 19th. So to give people that are playing in Nationals time to adapt. And they said there will be changes. Significant changes were the words that were used. So if you're expecting significant changes to the current metagame, Darick, let's start with you. What do you expect?
I mean, I don't know, especially with them saying significant changes. Because when I hear the words significant changes, I think something on the scale of like the book burning. Like, to me, that was significant, not like one or two cards. And right now, I don't know that I can think of anything worthy of that level of a treatment. Not to say that there's not powerful things that you can do in the game right now, but the reality is representation, outside of the Aurora stuff, has looked pretty good otherwise, and we're only going to have like a week or two extra on top of that so to further dive into it. So like I don't know, unless it's like preemptive stuff that they're trying to get ahead of for high seas. So I could think of 3 of a kind or some
There's
of those
the one.
cards.
We did it. That's the lead. That is on the board in Vegas, babe.
Yeah. So like that, I could see, that could be potentially where they go with it. But yeah, like just for like existing metagame, it was difficult for me to think of anything that would really need, quote unquote, significant changes. I will say, however, when I was getting the MRI done last week on my elbow, I was in the tube and I realized,
which is fucked.
Yeah, my elbow has a partial tear and I have a nerve problem. Anyway, when I was in the tube, I realized, I was like, man, this is the 4th MRI I've had in the last decade. And then I realized, whenever we're talking about like, hey, we might need to address this, we might need to ban this, or this is on the watch list, I feel like LSS should say this is on the MRI list. Like we're gonna give 3 of a kind an MRI and see if we need to address it or not, right? See if we need to go in with a scalpel and address this metagame or or what. But
yeah. Well, that is completely not here or there. So do you have any predictions beyond 3 of a kind?
I mean, the only other one that I could think of that like potentially warrants it would be one or, even potentially multiple of like the codexes or whatever. But I feel like as good as they are, it is a sweep. Like Codex of Frailty, for example, like if you hit that, like that is a pretty sweeping hit to a lot of the heroes. And like, yes, you can make the argument that, maybe it's, I think that this is an opinion. It's not one that is mine, but I'm just saying I've heard people say things like, it is bad game design that classes have to rely on something like Codex to be viable, right? I don't know that I necessarily agree with that, because I could say the same thing about like literally anything. Like, oh my God, the class has to rely on its powerful cards to be relevant. Like that just seems like a silly thing to me.
That's literally what Majestics are. Like,
yeah, that's like
the whole point.
But anyway, but like that's the only other thing where I'm looking at it and I'm thinking about things that like give you that that edge, because I'm thinking about, right now the precedent has been set in my mind that there are 2 things that usually get you looked at, potentially a third, but the 2 big ones are either consistently draw a lot more cards than you should be drawing in a turn, you consistently get more action points than you should in a turn, or you consistently get free damage. Right, so I think that's where Flickerwisp potentially fell into that, and they were considering that as the ban, because I think that's door number 3, if you will. But I think that the other 2 are the 2 starting points, and so I was like, well, Codex, like you're not drawing it in the current turn, right? But the Ponder is relevant, and there are other cards that do that as well, like maybe Premeditate or whatever. But we got a new Ranger coming, and I don't think that they want to gut that class of its staples while also introducing it. I think that the reason that they might hit 3 of a kind is because, again, it's like the other books. That's the offender in terms of like, oh, by the way, now I had like an 8 card hand turn. Like that doesn't feel great. So I think 3 of a kind is potentially there. Could be like maybe the codexes or whatever. And then after that, like I really do struggle to think of other things that might get you there. Like maybe it's an outside thing where after Kasai wins, they take away Gorganian Tome.
Fuck off. That's fucking trolling, you motherfucker. No.
God, that was
no.
mean.
Eat shit.
You were waiting for that.
I was.
Mother. What say you, Mike?
I don't know. I mean, like, to be fair, I probably don't play enough
to be fair.
A ton of attention to what's going on per se, but I think like Charmer brings up really good points where like you have
God, don't do that.
Put that in the supercut, Greg.
Look at this. Look at it from like what's the core design philosophies of this game is that like anything statted at like any interval of 3+1 is probably good. So attacks on 4 and attacks on 7 probably pretty good. Because defending is intervals of 3. You're basically lightning bolting in reverse.
But, when you look at stuff that just lets you...
First off, split damage is so hard to manage. So, Rune Blades have always been categorically an issue because of that. So, you look at something like Flickerwisp, it's like, okay, well, they're just piling it on at this point. What do we do about that? But then, like, the book bans were huge. Art War going away sucked for a lot of people, and it felt very splash damage. But you had heroes that were abusing the shit out of it. So you have to make it go. You know, a lot of people like to bring up the whole, why don't you ban it for X hero or Y class? It's like, okay, why are we writing a book? Let's not do this. So you just have to...
We burn those. Right, we burn those.
Exactly. Duh.
You lived in Florida, you know.
Yeah, unfortunately. I try not to think about it. I'm going to start staring off into the distance here in about 5 minutes.
Look,
but
to quote Rage Against the Machine, we don't have to burn the books. We can just remove them. That's the Florida way.
I'm into him. But, like, it's really hard to nail it down because you're looking at a metagame that has just had a seismic change. And we have a new set coming. That, like, you can't... This is such a hard game to predict what's going to do well. I mean, when you look at other card games, or really any other competitive game where we have, like, bans or suspensions or restrictions that come in place, Flesh and Blood is very unique in that stuff will just show up. And it doesn't matter if it was, you know, premeditated or seen ahead of time. Certain deck, like, for instance, when I quit playing in... was Dynasty the supplemental?
Yes, Dynasty, yeah.
So I quit then because I was also playing Jomai at the time, and then when they were talking about Dynasty, they're like, man, there's going to be Jomai stuff in here, and then they gave us like one card. And at the time, I was too fucking rat-brained to think about things. And so I was like, they didn't give us stuff. I don't like this game anymore.
And that one card was like, what, Tome or whatever?
Was it Tome?
No, it was the Majestic... It was some Majestic. Dynasty. Dromai. Majestic. Boom. What the hell was it?
Yeah, it's Bright Lights' Tome of Imperial Flame.
Yeah, Bright. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was something to do with Vincerakai. I forget. It was a Majestic. It wasn't very good.
The Dust?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was the Dust. So I saw the Dust, and I was like, cool, I'm going to play in Traffic. So I just...
Dust from the Red Desert. Yep.
Yeah, I hate that card. Where the hell was I going with this? So, like, you look at it where, you know, at that time, I think a lot of people were also pretty down on Jomai because of the meta. And then I leave for, like, 2 years, and I come back, and I find out that shortly after I left, she just accelerated her way through Living Legend and left. Like...
yeah, she got Tome of the Imperial Flame.
Right, exactly. And that was just a thing that happened at her. And all of a sudden, now, that one thing revitalized the hero. You don't get to really predict stuff in Flesh and Blood. So I don't really know what they could ban. The only thing that comes to mind is the addressing of like the secondary market, which is not a healthy thing to address with bans. So you can't really do that. So it's like, what do you touch that won't piss off a significant enough of your player base to cause problems? I think you just have to let it ride. Unless they know something... I mean, obviously they know things about what they're designing ahead of time. And they really know what's in High C, so they're going to... It's like the Duskblade ban. When Duskblade got banned, it's like, oh, well, they did it because they knew.
Because it was never legal.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, we can't let this happen.
And like even further to your point, you know, when you start talking about like secondary market stuff and potential bans and whatever, and it's funny because I threw in a question related to CNC for us at the end because I wanted to talk about it. But I also, you know, when you talk about like potential future landscape stuff, I know Project Blue is trying to see what a world looks like without like Sync and Fate and whatever, but I don't think we're going to hit that point anytime soon in Classic Constructed, specifically because, you know, Shelter just got printed, right? If anything, that was a signal that, you know, those 0-for-4 D-reacts are just going to continue to be around. I can't imagine they would print that.
0-for-4 attacks exist. Why not?
You know. So then the only other thing is like, okay, well, like you could say E-Strike, but like let's be honest, as much as like people like to complain about it, E-Strike hasn't been like a turbo relevant card. I'm not saying it doesn't get played. It's just it's not like as turbo relevant, and so then it's like, okay, well you could say like maybe CNC, but does that really change the meta? Like honestly,
No,
if they banned CNC today, it would change decks, but does it change the meta? No. So when they talk about like significant changes and whatever, I can't imagine that like that's the direction they'd be considering either.
And like the point about E-Strike is especially
relevant to their philosophy on bans, because the whole reason that E-Strike was good is because if you could get a lot of cards in your hand, you said, fuck that additional cost, I don't care about it. But, like, you get rid of Auto War, you go on the book banning. All of a sudden, you're trying to show that you're reducing, or you're trying to reduce the amount of pure card advantages in this game. That additional cost really does stack up then, because it's like, okay, well, is this really like a 2-card hand I want to present? Is this something that's actually going to do something? Or do I just like it because it's been a staple in the game for a while? You know what I mean? Like,
a 2-card 7 is fine.
Yeah. I mean, that's the real
the thing.
strength, right?
It's fine. It's just fine. It's like, okay, well, we're especially heading to a point where you want your 2-card hands to be good. They need to be good, not fine. So something like E-Strike is like, well, yeah, it's a what, 1 for 7, right?
It's 0 cost, so
yeah. But
it's a 2-card 7.
Yeah.
So it's a 2-card 7.
It's like, okay, 2-card 7, what is that really doing?
Or a
and then all of a
1-card
sudden
5.
it turns over. Yeah.
But I think so. I kind of thought through this a bit. I think 3 of a kind is gone. And only because of the text on Marlin. Because it reads, draw 3 cards, put 2 face up in your arsenal.
Super balanced.
And right. It's not. The other things that struck me, because honestly, I'm very certain that they thought that when they were designing High Seas, that in designing the heroes, they thought Azalea would be gone, and that Death Dealer would be gone.
Right.
It's not. I did ask Brody in Minneapolis, what the fuck? And he said, yet. There's still time.
Well,
and hey, if somebody knows about taking time, it's Brody.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing here is they can't allow these heroes to run rampant. So my guesses are 3 of a kind goes, Bolt and Shot goes. Because it's Bolt and Shot or Rain Razors, one of the two. Not necessarily both. I think CYB just bites the dust. I think they just finally pull the plug and say, all right, this is fucking miserable.
Yeah.
I also think they hit specifically Rootbound Carapace red. And I also think they hit Scepter of Pain. Because it's just so hard to interact with. And realistically, it makes it so that an aggro deck just kind of has to stare at their death. They don't get to do anything. They have to try to win before they get ninth bladed for 35. And turns out that can happen pretty fast. So those are kind of my initial guesses at what's going to happen. And that would be a pretty big shakeup in my mind. Like, that does a lot.
I think Scepter especially because, like, you want to talk about splash damage. You get rid of Scepter, like, Vincent just sits in the corner. Like, Vincent does not always want to be running Reaping Blade, truthfully, because, like, a lot of Vincent players...
No, Vincent runs the other one, the Vincent special, Flail of Agony.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
So,
like, even Scepter, it's like... Let me see it again, hold on.
So Scepter, no, because you have to pitch resources, and
Right.
Vincent wants to not.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are running that red list, but, like, I've also seen conversation among different groups that, like, we need to stop. Like, Vincent players have to stop trying to be a red line deck because, like, it's just not going to work. Like, with Aurora gone, like, we just don't get to do that.
Yeah.
Because people are too efficient. But I think, like, Scepter is probably fine, but I don't know, because it's only rare. I know they banned token weapons, but it is only a rare.
Right. I'm going to splash through the next couple of these really fast. James and Brian did say that there are 2 more big surprises in High Seas. One of them is in the expansion slot, similar to CNC. I personally think it's Codex of Frailty. That's what makes the most sense to me. It's been the right amount of time for them to know they need to reprint it and to get it into a set. So I feel like it's Codex. And it also fits in because you have a Ranger in the set. It won't be legal and limited, but still fits in thematically.
Well, we have a mechanologist, though, so I kind of hope it's high octane.
Yeah.
Nope.
I just that's for Ben. That's just rubbing salt in the
Just
wound.
rubbing salt in Ben's wounds. Okay. The other big surprise, like it's hard to imagine what that is when we know that the treasures that exist. And so another big surprise, it's like wondering what that is. So that'll be interesting. But they did say that it's another high profile reprint in the expansion slot, so my thought is Codex for that one. I don't think it's E-Strike. It's not as heavily played. It's not a this is $1 million problem. Same thing with like Warmongers is still
I know
expensive,
that it was
but
just printed, but given the art that it had and whatever, what if it's just Shelter again?
they couldn't have done it so fast. Like they didn't. The supply issues of the Hunted were not known.
Okay, I hear you, but there's no way that they printed, like, knowing how often, like, Sync and whatever, like, there's no way that they printed that set not knowing that it was going to be incredibly
I think they
sought
expected
after.
it to be a $30 to $40 Majestic. I don't think they expected it to be a $100 Majestic.
Sure.
That's
I'm
all.
just saying it could very well be that.
They could be trying to get ahead of that trend, though. Like, if they were planning way ahead of time for it to be Shelter, they're just saying, like, this has the potential to
What
be
if it's Tunic
more.
again?
I mean, it could be.
I would
another-
honestly fucking love a Tunic reprint, please. Like, oh, man.
I mean, I don't need to own more of them, but
I need to own
I guess
more than this of them. So, you know.
I went down to 2 off of like 5 or 6.
Of course you did. I think I remember you telling me about that. But, like, if they're trying to get ahead of how they know the secondary market, once again, how the secondary market kind of patterns itself, and they know that Shelter's a very good card, obviously, because they fucking wrote it. If they are trying to use this expansion slot as a way to sort of soften the blow preemptively, they're obviously too late. But they couldn't have known that they're going to be too late. They can't determine what the financial future of these cards is going to be. But it could be that they're just trying to stay ahead of the game, potentially, and saying, like, okay, if we know that we're printing something that's going to be very good, it's a generic, everyone's going to want it. We need to try to keep the price down because we know that a large barrier to entry for new players is the price of generics in this game.
Those can just be sync belows. It's fine.
That's all right. If it's got that cool art that the Project Blue playtesters get, I'm all for it.
I still prefer my tea and crumpets, but I get it.
Fair.
Last thing in the dev talk, Elo's going away. This is the last year of Elo. Now them announcing that well ahead of time, bravo.
Yes,
No
absolutely.
rug pull. No rug pull. We already know that it's going away. Don't bank on that shit. You know it's going to be gone. This is the last year of Elo. I think that that's very good.
Yeah.
I think that Elo is difficult to work through, but and difficult to get right.
Or
So this
in
being
the
last
case of
year of
everyone
Elo
on this
makes sense.
podcast, difficult to get.
Yeah,
I
I'm
think
too
mine's still above
fucking
water.
I'm too stupid for Elo. Like, I just don't like thinking about it. It fucking hurts. I don't want that.
That's. I mean, let me look here. Am I still above water? Am I still above 1500? Because that's the starting point. Am I
Look,
better-
being above
That can't be
water?
true. I'm technically above 1500, I think. Or no, I'm
Being
not.
above
Never mind.
water is not the baseline I was talking about there, Logan.
Okay, well, so my Elo right now
What is mine,
is
actually?
not great. It's 1566. That's pretty awful. Let's find Darick Oswald.
Yeah,
I was gonna say
mine's-
I can guarantee it's better than mine.
Game. Nope. It's got to be events leaderboards.
Oh, there it is.
All right. So Oswald. Nope. I got to do it.
Where do I
XP
see my
lifetime,
Elo?
'cause that's the only
I
thing that you'll show
see-
up on.
Mine is 1492.38 after not playing
Elo
for
rating
years.
overall.
1588.10.
See,
sir.
better than me. You are a better
Yeah,
flesh and
look at
blood
that.
player than
Oh,
I am.
you know what? It's probably last year's day one Nats run
It's that,
carrying
yeah.
me.
It's that.
I forgot.
Well, it's day 2. Yeah, whatever it was.
Yeah, I went like X1 on new at Nats.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
at the calling. But yeah.
Calling, yeah. It was the calling at Nats.
Mine was actually over that until ProQuest season, where I just started dropping out of tournaments because there were lunch breaks. That's it for those. So now, Mr. Brown.
That's me.
What can Brown do for us?
I'm really fucking angry about Brute still. Where's my other talents, LSS? What is this? I'm looking right at the camera now. I haven't done that the entire episode. I'm going to get really intense for a minute. It is sickening to me. I mean, sickening to me that I have to stare at one-armed fucking KO all day long. No, I hate that. I refuse it. And, oh, Livia got a Demi hero. That's so awesome. I want new stuff. I don't want to keep looking at Blood Debt stuff all day and go, oops, did I brick? I'll take 8 and then have to block for the rest of the game and then die. I hate it. We've had 2 whole sets of elemental BS. Where is my Earth Brute, LSS? I want to know. I know you're hiding it in the basement. I can smell them. Give me the Earth Brute. I want the Earth Brute.
No.
Fair. Okay, so my real problem is, like, if you go on, like, February and you look at a bunch of Brute stuff, I kind of alluded to it earlier. I don't like Intimidate, and I like it as a keyword. I like it with Rhinar, and I like Rhinar's design. But when you look at those cards leaving Rhinar's pool at all, and keep in mind, Rhinar does not have a talent. He is the base Brute. Like, look at Show No Mercy. It's, what, a 3 for 6, I think? Let me look.
That sounds right.
It's like it's a 3 for 6. But it only intimidates when you attack a hero, which into Illusionist is like, cool, that sucks. Or into Upcoming Gravy Bones, that sucks. And you only get the bonus if you've done other shit. Where's our go again? And then I look at it, I'm like, oh, it's the cheetah package. You mean the cheetah package? I don't have control over what I keep, so I could just accidentally lose the Show No Mercy? I don't want to depend on top decking it. Bonebreaker Bellow is horrible. I hate it. No Fear, I also hate it. And I'm looking at this from a perspective of someone who's like, I don't want to just play Rhinar. If I want to play Brute, I want to be able to play a few of them because they're all supposed to be kind of cool and fun. But Brute feels so locked behind the Intimidate keyword or just the randomness, as if it's just supposed to be a meme the entire time. But, like you brought up earlier, Charmer,
If you look at Beat Chest, there's a very important word in the rules of Beat Chest.
and that word is fucking may.
You don't have to do it. But if you look at anything from the Cheetah package, like Wild Ride, for instance, do it. Do that thing. You have to do that thing. And I don't like that because you're taking away my agency. If I have a 2-card hand and it is a card and then Wild Ride, I just shrug. Or I send Club or whatever the weapon is. And that sucks because you can't even use Wild Ride, for instance, to block. What is the point of giving me a card that has Go Again that I might just not get it? It just feels kind of bad. I don't know. I don't like it. I think that they need to understand that Brute players do like Intimidate. They do like some discard stuff. But if we don't get something else, it just feels like constantly that class is disrespected. And then, even look at Warrior. Like, Kasai obviously just won, but, like, Warrior's solid. I've seen Bolton turns that are wide as shit, and they just do so much stuff. And, I mean, like, Kasai just has a lot of tools available to her.
Well, wait, are you talking about Sir Blarton the Mall Cop?
I am.
Bolton?
I am talking about Bolton. Listen, I remember when Saber Bolton was a thing. I love Raiden
It's a
Bolton.
dog shit taco.
I don't know. I just feel like those, but you don't get like punished for playing those necessarily. I mean, you might just brick. You might not do your fun combo turn, but like the design rewards you for careful planning the entire time. Whereas Brute's design says hedge for the best and hope that the variance doesn't destroy you outside of the variance of playing a card game. And that's like, I want to be able to not do that sometimes. Does that make sense?
No, I understand. And it's always hard. I think Brute's hard to design.
Yeah. Yeah.
Largely because it's one false move.
Oh,
and it's way too good.
Listen, I'll state that now. I understand the reason they made Go Again conditional is because the number is big. I got that. I have seen swing big.
Like, the other thing here is that, like, you have, if again, I throw these numbers out there, you have a 15 cost brute attack. Then the text box says this cannot be added to the combat chain by anything, but it's a blue 6 that blocks for 3.
I will play it all day. I will play it all day.
3 copies go into every brute list.
Yep. Absolutely.
And that is the absolute worst. Like, you could say, it could say anything. It could say,
you lose the game if you play this card.
Right. It could say blocking. If you block with this card, you lose the game. And it's still 3 copies, please.
I'll do it because I'll lose on my own terms. That's where Brute is at.
But
I would rather die on my own
terms. Because people have other cards that can make you block.
Right.
But the point is that you could make the shittiest blue 6 that you could think of.
I'll play it all day.
And Brute's playing 3 of them. Mm-hmm. And that's that's the point of how hard it is to design around Brute.
Yeah, because Wreck-It-Ralph's a bad card. I play every list starts with 3.
Every list plays 3 blues. Mm-hmm. And it, again, and I understand why, but that is the essence of why Brute is so difficult to work with.
Right.
Because one misstep.
Yep.
And all of a sudden shit is off the rails.
Yeah. And then, you think about it too, it's like, you have all these cards that are already printed. Like, on the topic of erratas too, you can't change them.
No.
And it feels like a lot of the Brute card pool is so locked to the identity that they've had since the beginning that it's also hard to just design a good hero or like set of cards for them. Because then if that hero and or set of cards is good, it's so insular, right? Because if you don't want to play a Brute that's random discarding all the time or not blocking, it's like, well, suddenly you are limited to what they made that does exactly that and nothing else. And you can look at like the Dusk to Dawn designs too for Levia that prove that same point of like they feel almost like they're playtesting it a little bit and sitting it and not thinking about it.
I keep coming back to thinking about what we just got with Fang. I'm glad you mentioned like, Brute isn't a bad spot, but like Warrior was fine. But the reality is I actually think Warrior is a lot closer to Brute than you give it credit for. And up until we just got Fang, I would have argued that the classes were actually in very similar positions because Warrior had a bunch of stuff that was fine, but they only had one talented hero in Bolton. And, Brute only had one talented hero in Levia. And they were very insulated in their core mechanics. Warrior is entirely built around weapons, and Brutes were entirely built around the 6 or more thing. And we got Fang for Warrior now, right? It's a new talent, right? You get Draconic. Still has some of that Warrior class identity, still cares about weapons, but what they did to introduce Fang is they were like, okay, this one's going to care about daggers. So you can still play some of those previous cards, but because, we're introducing a talent, let's do this the safe way. Let's, do this with daggers. And, whether or not it makes people like Logan happy, like, I understand why they did it.
Goon bait and Kasai, I would be so happy.
Yeah. So, like, I understand why they did it that way. And so when I think about Brutes and their future, it would not surprise me if we do get another talented Brute soon. Maybe in the vein of how we kind of got Fang, where it's fitting some sort of mold. But I also think that we're going to get some version of Brute that still lets you care about existing Brute cards, but in a completely different or unexpected way. So ways that I have considered is like, what if just entire knee-jerk reaction, this is not like my well thought out dev game design thing, so LSS, don't think about this when you want to hire me in the future. But like, what if instead we had Brutes that were a bit more weapon focused, right? Because one of the things that I think is missing from a game design standpoint, and we kind of got a little bit with Jarl, but we don't really have anything where it's like you just do the one big weapon swing. The closest that the game has had, if I'm being entirely honest, is just Bravo with Anothos, right? Hammer go bonk. But for the most part, it's like you're dual wielding weapons and you're going fast and furious, where your weapon was kind of an afterthought, or it's like the add-on with your go again and rune blades. But we don't have the like, I want to do a big weapon swing, right? Give me the great sword character. Give me the great axe character. I know that we've got Decimator and whatever, but like, give me something big. So what if, you know, you have something where it's like you have the brute with a weapon, but the weapon gets a bonus if you've discarded a card, but also gets a bonus if you have pitched something that has like 6 or more attack, right? Give it the Anothos treatment, and it can, so like maybe it's something that starts as a 3 but can go up to a 9 or whatever if you have the conditions met. Just like weird stuff like that, where you're like, I'm the weapon brute, but I'm just, you know, maybe it's what we thought Betsy was going to be. Give me Log, but as a brute, right? Just give me
we still don't
the
even have
club of all
Log.
clubs. But I could see them doing something like that, where you still make it care about some of the existing stuff. And again, like if it's the discard thing, then maybe beat chest plays into it, or if it's, you know, the attack weapon thing, then the 6 costs play into it, et cetera, et cetera. But they need something like that where you are also getting away from what you're talking about, where it's the random discard or it's the intimidate for identity thing, where they can be a little bit more consistent in that regard.
Well, and
they're
like
just scared of giving Shion a log. That's all there is to it.
if you look at like Swing Big's an awesome example of like they're so fucking close. So fucking close. I love Swing Big. Good card.
It's a great card.
Super awesome. If they had given Brute this identity of, I'm going to gut check you every time I attack you. Either you are committing to this attack and defending it all the way out and getting a bonus, or you're just going to let me hit. And kind of let them share this identity between them and Guardian. Where it's like, okay, I have some on hits that are kind of good, but instead of just giving them traditional on hits, make them like kind of backwards. I mean, Swing Big was like literally an if I don't hit, it's an on no hit. I love that idea of like, if this number in the bottom left corner causes you to lose life, then that's it. But if it doesn't, and you give me all the stuff you have, because then it kind of plays along the intimidate space too, of like, well, I'm going to take away your agency to defend me. And then you can give me some more of that agency away, and you'll get some back. But we'll see how that kind of pans out. Like, you kind of make your opponent... If you can take your opponent off their ability to plan everything out, it makes sense with Brute as a class identity, where they're like, I'm introducing variance. I'm introducing a random aspect. And I may not necessarily be able to control it all the time, but it's going to make it so that you can't either. And I'm now making it so that your blocks are not as reliable. You are not able to plan your entire turn out, your next turn out, because I have taken that from you. Whether or not I have damaged you this turn, I have damaged your ability to feel in control of this game. I think that would be kind of interesting space for them to take it in. Whether they will or not, I don't know. I'm definitely not buying Brute cards for a time because they're giving me a fucking Pirate Necromancer, and I can't say no to that. So
Sure.
I'm going to do that, but like, as soon as they give us anything reasonable for Brute, I'm all the way back in, because it's a Wraith hero. And the Wraith heroes are all fantastic, super fun designs. And it's about time that Brute got some more expansion on them that felt like the class identity was more respected and not just expounded on in this way where it's like, oh, well, it's the Brute thing. They are just random. Haha, LOL. I'm really not into it. So I really would like for them to do something different, but...
Well, and I just wanted to hit on something you said, where you said, you know, if you can make it so your opponent can't necessarily plan for everything, but take away the randomization on you, the player as well, right? That's one of the reasons I love playing Assassin, is just that it makes my opponent like have to figure something out every turn, right? Because of the attack reactions. And the reason that I had mentioned like the Anothos design specifically is because one of my favorite things to do when I played Bravo was... You pitch one card to swing hammer for 4.
Yep.
And then after they block, you pitch the second to pummel, right? And you go from 4 to 10. And it would be nice. I mean, not that I want to play against it, obviously, right? But like, it would be nice if Brute had something similar to that in their arsenal, where instead, you know, they're pitching the card that costs 6 or more into their pummel. And maybe that's what buffs the weapon up and blah, blah, blah. But they don't have any of that like gotcha stuff. And even the ones they do have, like everyone plays around, right? Like everybody knows that they have a D-react that can do damage to you, so you just don't dip below that amount, and then you're fine. You know what I mean? It's not a surprise the way that it should be or could be, and so I do think that there is some room there in the future for them.
Yeah, but we'll see. I mean, that's really it. I just wanted some time to complain about Brute, because nobody else has done it. I figured I'd fall on the sword and make sure everybody knows that it's not a perfect
I complain
class.
about it all the time. I am your biggest proponent for Earth Brute. So
Go fuck yourselves.
Dude, you can ask Logan. For a while, I would just pop back into the Discord, be like, hey, did they give us a new Brute? And I was like, no. And I'm like, cool, see you in a month.
Yep, and then he would just disappear.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to move on into listener questions. We've got... all right. Johnny Pastrami's back, which, so you know it's nonsense. A fiery debate rages in my household, and we need it settled. When brushing your teeth, do you put the toothpaste on the brush first and then get it wet? Or do you get the brush wet first, then apply the toothpaste? Okay, you fucking monster. Of course you wet the brush first. Everybody knows you wet the brush first. It's like saying, do I wipe my ass and then take a shit?
No, it's the answer is both. It should always be both.
Both is reasonable.
The
Both
first
is
wet is not a wet. The first is a rinse.
It's
I don't
a
know how
rinse,
long
right.
your toothbrush sits out, but I ain't putting mine in my
we
mouth till
rinse
I've
that
rinsed
shit.
it. So you
Rich
rinse.
was right. Rich said that immediately. He was like,
Wet the brush, put the toothpaste, wet it all together, go.
You rinse. It's not just a wet. You rinse.
You rinse that bitch.
Put toothpaste on the toothbrush, and then I put enough water on the top so that I know it's firmly packed down, because there's nothing more annoying than you put toothpaste on and you go to put it in your mouth and it just drops off the toothbrush before it makes it to your mouth. So the second round of water is to make sure it's secured against the brush.
But you gotta
make it
rinse
to the
your
mouth.
fucking brush.
Yeah, you have to rinse.
and it's also a question of efficiency because, like, you know, if you turn the brush and it survives and you get to use it, if that toothpaste just, like, falls off the brush inside your mouth, it just, like, floats around there. And you're like, cool, this is a fucking glob I have to taste for God knows how long, and it's not doing anything for me. So, I agree.
I'm not going to talk about how many dates that sounds like of mine.
Yeah, I won't either. My wife's in the other room.
Moving on. This one's from the Salty Sea Cat. Time to take out Kasai. I think we kind of covered that. I will say this. Kasai will be in my bag, built and ready to go for Nats. So that is a thing. So yeah, it is a thing. Whether or not I play it, I have a couple other designs I'm working on for stuff to play. So definitely a possibility. But the proof of concept that was given to us in Minneapolis is that if you can predict the metagame, Kasai is good. If you can't, which would largely be ProQuests and callings to a degree, sadly, even US Nats to a degree, you're in trouble. But if you get, like, as an example, if you just get paired into nothing but what you expect, you'll be fine. But if you, round one, find yourself staring across the table at a Verdance, it's like,
Just cry.
well, I guess I'm now in the Verdance bracket, and you're going to have a bad day. And dodging that, I think, would feel pretty good. But to answer your question, Kasai will be with me, and will be built, boarded up, loaded in gem, ready to select as a deck. So, yes, it is time to take it out, time to play. Jury's out. But I do still own all the cold foils for it, so we're good. Actually, I need to get cold foil Null Rune now, I think. I really wish the Dutch Null Rune was cold foil. I'm sad that it's only rainbow, because clogs are awesome. I figured that one was more pointed at me. Does anybody have anything to add to that?
Not really.
All right, so Darick has jumped into the fucking listener questions.
Unbelievable. Banned.
unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Charmer asked, at what point do you cut CNC if your deck has no other synergy / use for it outside of its printed value? So I'm assuming you mean outside of it being a 2 cost, 6 power, 3 block red.
Yeah, well, and I mean, obviously, it has text, right? Like the text is not irrelevant, but my point is, as somebody who I've been trying to find a build of new that I feel comfortable with, and I keep coming back to in new right now. It's a pretty crowded list. There's a lot of stuff that you want to run, and a lot of your attack reactions and so forth do not interact with CNC. You're not, unless you're a madman, and don't get me wrong, I tried it. You're not running pummel or anything like that. And it's kind of clunky at the 2 cost. A lot of the stuff I think works best in Assassin when it costs 1 or less, because your blue then is nicely tucked into dagger, do the thing. So I'm a big fan of looking for a scrap or, obviously the attack reactions. CNC's in this weird place in the list, and there's always a lot of discourse online and even, at locals or whatever about, there are certain cards that every deck has to run. And I know that not every deck has to run it, but CNC is very much lauded as this is a required card. And you're not running it in Azalea or whatever because it just doesn't fit your deck. But for a deck let's just say new or Slippy, or I do think it belongs in Uzuri because there's, additional context there, right?
Yeah.
But new or Slippy, I think, are the 2 great examples where the rest of your deck is likely not interacting with it. And so at best, it's usually a 2 card 6 that they, might block. And then it's going to be dependent on, do they have a card in Arsenal they care about, right? They could have a card in Arsenal and not care about it. They might not have a card in Arsenal when that's your play. It's very often suboptimal. There's something to be said about it's a potential popper for Prism, and she is, still a thing in this meta. But yeah, at what point do you as a player think that it's worth going, let's not go with the common thought of you have to run this card. So I'm just curious.
I think that, so if you look at a lot of lists that exist just out in the ether, they don't necessarily run CNC. It's not as ubiquitous as everybody makes it out to be. Its text is relevant 100%, and almost every deck runs some number of defense reacts, no matter what, in their list. And the arsenal is available for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But as an agnostic 2 for 6 block 3 that doesn't necessarily fit your game plan, it having that be on the chopping block is reasonable. I don't see anything wrong with that. It doesn't. I don't run it in Syndra. I normally it's in and out of Kasai because sometimes it's just I can do this, or I can Nourishing Emptiness people, and that's way more fun.
Right.
There's just a lot of different things.
Yeah,
that should inform that decision, and not just, but it's CNC.
Well, but you'd be surprised how much but it's CNC does lifting. And again, it's not even just card as printed isn't good. It's just one of those things where, again, recently as I'm looking at, playing new or playing Slippy or whatever, it's those things where in new, like I said, I'm a big fan of looking for a scrap because you got a lot of ways to turn it on. It's a very nicely fit in with your dagger swings. The 5 go again. We were just talking about how E-Strike can be pretty good. Well, it turns out looking for a scrap kind of does that. It doesn't block for 3, but when you're trying to, be aggressive, right? When you're not playing the CYB version of new, I like a card like that. But when you go a little bit further down your deck list and, if you're playing Slippy or new, just for example, cards I've been looking at recently, Cut Through, right? Cut Through is basically a 0 for 4 with Go Again. Turns out those are historically pretty good, right? There's, even cards that aren't necessarily 0 for 4s, but effectively do a ton of heavy lifting, where you've got, Kiss of Death, or maybe you want to run, Pain in the Backside, which, that's a 0 for 3 go again, but because it's an assassin card, you can actually play your reactions on it that you can't do with the CNC, right? So there's potentially value there. I've been messing around with Up Sticks and Run, even in new, because if you're going with the Flick Knives version, again, it's a nice clean, right? Where you're going to pitch a blue, you can get a dagger back, and then swing with your dagger with the buff, and then continue your turn, sort of thing. So,
well, I'm just going to do this the easy way. The top 8 in Battle Hard in Minneapolis. Of those, in total, how many copies of CNC were in the top 8?
I'm going to say 15.
Mr. Brown?
No, I'm just guessing.
Top 8. I'm going to undershoot him, say 13.
8.
Insane.
Two decks that played 3 copies and 1 deck that played 2.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think the thing about CNC, right, is that it's got a twofold problem in that CNC being a quote unquote auto include is like a thing. It's like a relic of a forgotten age, right? When card pools were smaller and options were not as readily available, yes, everyone ran CNC because also people really, really, really needed their arsenals a lot of times, and they still do. But the fact is, there's more ways to destroy arsenals with attack actions, and they're class locked, but they're still there. You have more of them that are available to you now, and more of them that fit your play style more than just jamming an awkward 2 for 6 that does not have go again, that does not really benefit from anything else in there. And then also, like, coming from someone who's like not necessarily as good at this game as a lot of people really are, I think that CNC kind of presents this thing that generics have a problem with game-wide, where people put them in the deck to hedge up, to shore up a weakness that they have in deck building, where it's like, I don't really know what else I would put here. I'm just going to put CNC in here because it's generically powerful. But that spot, especially nowadays, should almost always be something else. And I mean, if you look at, like, once again, Brute, where it's like, I especially like it because it's a 6-power attack. But
That's a 6-power block 3.
Right. But do I really like it as much as some other options? Like every Levia list that I've been making since I got back into this game months ago, I'm not putting it in there. Because I have other things that I care about playing that I'm just like, I don't know if I really have the room for 2 to 3 copies of CNC because I want to be doing something specific. I don't want to be doing this thing that's just, I'm playing 3 Shelter, I'm playing 3 CNC, I'm playing 2 to 3 E-Strike. That's a thing from 3 years ago. I remember seeing lists all the time 3 years ago that were just, that was the numbers of those cards. And those decks did well because they weren't sacrificing anything by playing them.
Yeah, you played 3 Sinks, 3 Fates, and 3 CNCs.
And then it was like, I just win in like raw card advantage. But now you can't do that because so many decks, so many heroes are so fine-tuned at this point. They're so focused in on their game plan. And their game plans are proving to be good enough to where their weaknesses just are not that big of a deal for them when it comes to generics, like getting in the way. Like you have Command & Conquer destroying an arsenal is a problem, but a lot of heroes just play around it now. A lot of people have learned to play around that. Whereas a few years ago, people were still figuring out that, I got to play around that, like, my opponent who's playing like an aggro hero might go wide for a few attacks and then have an extra card in hand that they play their CNC from Arsenal. And I was hoping to hold on to this whole hand. I was playing greedy, but now I just soaked a ton of damage that I should not have taken. And I'm also getting hit with a CNC that I still now have to block that still ruins my plan. And people don't play like that anymore. They just don't, because everybody's learned. And new players learn extremely quickly that you can't do that because anytime someone is playing 2+ attacks, there's going to be some bullshit in there. Like, it's just what happens.
Almost always is. All right, kids. Well, let's get out of here. But first, let's thank some patrons because I was bullied into making this fucking thing. Actually, Jordan was bullied into making this fucking thing.
Yeah, it was actually Jordan.
But several years ago, and I guess it's still here. So let's thank some patrons. We got our associate producers, Aladoris, Andy, Cindra, Ejor, Jacob, Larry, Quiet Goat, Salty Sea Cat, Sofsky, and Zaris, our executive producers on up. We have Blaze Storm, valued member of the Patreon. Diana, Micaiah, Pox isn't making fetch happen, which is correct on us. Vintox, Philip, Brandon. Now we're in the Chamber of Charcoal, baby. Brandon, you're up. Matt, again, thank you very much for being the first person to experiment with this. Papa Jackal, thank you.
It's me.
Thank you for the support. Oren, you're now up. And Rich, you're up. So we have a few more of these user episodes to do here as well. As always, if you feel like taking the host spot that Michael has so graciously done tonight, or if you just want to support the show and become a member of our Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/fleshandpod. Link is in the show notes, some number of fucking tiers. Pick a paid one. You can get into FAP After Darks, which are just unhinged bullshit that we do in Discord about once a month that isn't recorded. Who the fuck do I want to ask at this first? Probably Charmer. Well, I guess if you want to contact the show, you can send an email to fleshandpod@gmail.com. Or if you want to find me, you can just search Flesh and Pod on BlueSky. It's easy. But Charmer, where can they find you?
Not at Locals or ProQuests or...
How about our Discord?
Yeah, Discord. It's funny, I'm typing it up right now. I'm going to post the version of new that I've been toying around with on Talishar recently and see what people think.
They're gonna roast you. That link's in the show notes, by the way, if you want to join our Discord. I'm just very bad at announcing stuff today. Michael, where can they find you?
So I have a BlueSky that I have not been using because I'm horrible at being a social person. It's Sleeper Jackal, SLPR-Jackal at bsky.social. I also want to take a minute to say that I think, Logan, people do not tell you this enough. This show about a fucking card game is phenomenal. And it has created a community that has shifted, ebbed and flowed, and changed throughout the years. And coming back to it, when I got a hold of you, I was like, hey, what the fuck do I do about getting back into this game? And you said, just get back into the Discord, idiot. And I said, good point. It was like nothing had changed for me personally, because we have made a community of people that are all fantastic. I appreciate everybody that is in the Discord, everybody that listens to this show, helps prove to these two jackasses that it's worth to keep doing, because it is. I'm just really thankful for this game, the place it's taken in my life, and you two especially for keeping the show running, keeping it going, and giving me something to listen to while I do bullshit I don't want to do. So it's been pretty great. I hope it keeps going forever. I hope Brute gets respect, and I hope that Gravy Bones is not a fucking meme. That's kind of it. But yeah, you can find me at that BlueSky. I'm going to be posting there more as I start experimenting with different stuff, but kind of working through all that social shit right now.
I got you. Well, amen, brother. Thank you very much. I appreciate the kind words. You get some fucking sleep, though. You have
it is fucking 11 p.m., so I might.
Is it?
Yeah, for me it is.
I mean, it's...
Well, same here, but all right.
For me.
Well, thank you, everybody, for listening to the show. I just moused over Charmer's name again, and it just said, just give me robot arms, and so I...
Same
Robot arms with built-in Bluetooth speakers. This is my selling point. I need... Entrance music.
God damn it.
Yes. There's nothing better than...
What's your entrance music?
Well, it would depend. Like, if I was a wrestler, I'd probably have something custom made by either Sean
Jim
or
Johnson.
like if I could afford them, like I Prevail, something like Bow Down, but just for me. But if I have to pick something, man, all right. So if I could get the licensing, I think it'd be baller as hell to have your entrance music be Duel of the Fates, but it kicks off with like the chanting part, because nothing gets you hyped like Duel of the Fates, but there's no way you can get that licensing, right?
No.
So if it's not
Disney,
that,
fuck off.
Yeah,
if it's
you'll
not that,
die
then,
before that.
Yeah. It would probably be, I don't know, it's just like classic Rager shit, right? Like Rage Against the Machine or whatever.
Boy Sets Fire After the Eulogy. That's my answer. If anybody has never heard that song, hop on YouTube, look it up. Boy Sets Fire, all one word. Name of the song is After the Eulogy.
Or
that'd be my
out.
entrance music.
There's a song by Our Lady Peace. No, I can't take Hank's entrance music. I'm sorry.
Oh, God damn it. I'm leaving. Fuck off. Everybody, thank you for listening. Have a great night. Bye.